Good that he didn't. All right, well, let's go ahead and get going then. I'm going to have the chat open on this side, so if you just see me looking to the right, that's what I'm doing. Go ahead and share the screen. Oh, was it not going? There it goes. All right, minimizing that. Great, so my name is Oscar Veliz. I've been teaching on YouTube for a while, at least getting back into things as of about 3 years ago. Currently, I am doing a postdoc at Carnegie Mellon University. I'm a postdoctoral teaching fellow, and I'm a proud member of the Paso del Norte chapter of CSTA because I'm living in El Paso, Texas, and working remotely. Going to the University of Texas at El Paso for my doctorate in computer science, looking at AI and making smart decisions when you have a lot of uncertainty. And that's sort of my background. I started making YouTube videos when I was an undergraduate. I just made a few of them for a class. The class was on numerical analysis, and it was just as a project that the instructor had started, that I worked with my instructor to decide on, and that I ended up making. They're very short, like 5 minutes each, and they only made like 5 or 6 of them. And then at the time I thought, oh, this is great. I posted them online. I put it on the back burner. And then several years later, I think it might have been 5 or 6 years later, I hit 1,000 subscribers on YouTube. A few of my videos actually had gotten lots of traction. They were the first things that came up when you would search for them. So that's, and since then, after I hit 1,000, I've been making about 1 video a month since then on other topics that people for the longest time had been requesting, and going on from there. So that's just sort of a little bit about sort of my experience of teaching on YouTube and then what the experience has been like. I want to sort of get your folks' thoughts about learning on YouTube and maybe sort of your interests in trying to end this session apparently, by giving just sort of an icebreaker. I'm going to post the link in the chat as well, but if you have your phone, just so you can take a shot at it. Oops. No, not that link. Share a link with participants. And the poll should be live. And the first question on there, and I don't have the automated integrated results with PowerPoint, so sorry about that. But the first question is asking about which YouTubers are you familiar with? And I know there's plenty more than what's on the list, but I just want to sort of get a sense for the kinds of things that you've heard of. So yeah, just go ahead and click on the link or use your phone to scan the QR code. There's no need to limit an account or anything. And just sort of select the kinds of classes or channels that you may have heard of. A lot of folks saying MIT OpenCourseWare. Few are saying other. Oh, yeah, actually, yeah, other folks are saying other. Yeah, there's, as I mentioned, there's plenty. If you haven't heard of these, I'm going to run through some of them. Some of the more common ones that I think folks really like. Kurzgesagt is a German channel but their videos are in English. They also have a German section of their videos, and they're all highly animated lessons on different topics. So if you want to, there's one of the more interesting ones I saw was all about ant colonies and the giant wars between different kinds of ants and their adaptations for survival. They also talk about global warming, nuclear fission. Like, you name the topic, they probably have a video on it, and they're highly produced, well animated, and greatly narrated. So I do recommend them. Channels like Physics Girl and TVs are women who've done a lot of science communication, especially around the areas like physics. And I know Physics Girl right now is making an AP Physics class all online. So if you take her, watch her videos on AP Physics, they're all tied to the AP Physics exam. So it's a great resource for students. Channels like Nancy Pye and Patrick JMT, as well as Numberphile, are very much focused on math topics and tend to be advanced high school, early college. And everyone seems to be familiar with OpenCourseWare. MIT is a really great channel. The one I thought that everyone would have selected would be Crash Course. They make you list a high school class, they have a series of videos that is essentially that class. So they have crash course economics, crash course bio, crash course in European history. They even have a very good crash course computer science that I'd recommend to students who are just starting out at it. So it's highly, I do recommend that channel as well. And then let me go ahead and go to the next question. Oh, which is a survey. So I'm going to show you 2 images, and I want you to pick the image choice which you think is more engaging. So here's the image, or images, excuse me. And let me start the Slido. So Slido should be updated. And these are both screenshots taken from the same channel, which is MIT OpenCourseWare. So take your time. Which one would you rather watch, or which one do you think is more engaging? And give folks another second. Yeah, I think everyone said B. Yep. So, and not that there's anything wrong with A. MIT OpenCourseWare is an excellent channel, lots of great learning going on there. And I specifically kind of took a part of the lesson where he has his back faced, and it's also later in the lesson where you see lots and lots of text. So he didn't write that all and then just start talking about it. This was well into a 60-minute lecture. So kind of keep in mind, it's sort of taken out of context, but the idea is still the same. So if you're watching somebody give a lecture, they're addressing the class. They're not necessarily addressing the camera or you, the viewer. Whereas with B, it's much more designed to be video focused. It's a lot shorter in a sense. The language is much clearer and more directed, but it's also meant to be like something where you can't have the two-way communication. Like in class, you can stop the instructor and ask them for help. With videos, you have to be aware, like they really can't have that same kind of thing. I mean, there is a way to interact with folks in comments, and I do take advantage of that, but it's sort of, you have to be much more precise with how you're explaining something. So it's also just a sort of different mindset of thinking, teaching in person versus teaching in a lesson. And that's not something I think folks take advantage of. So, I mean, there's other kinds of differences as well to teaching in a video format. And what I want to do in the next section is this next quiz is a word art. So identify, just add in words that you think reflect a great video lesson. So put in a word, hit submit, put in another word, hit submit, and then we'll see a collage come up for the kinds of words that people were saying. And then after you've submitted, by the way, you can add more words. So if you see a word that somebody else put in that you want to double down and say, oh, I like that word as well, go ahead and put that word in. And by the end of it, we should have a very cool collage coming up. So folks are saying, yeah, engaging, concise. I like that. A lot of folks seconding engaging. Personal. Oh, very good. Yeah, trying to, it's an interpersonal medium, so trying to make them as personal as possible makes a lot of sense. Music. Oh yeah, having music. If the audio is pretty keen for lots of videos. I should mention that for A, you have a very difficult time listening to the instructor, not because he's not speaking loud enough, he kind of is, but there's lots of reverb and other pieces of noise and aspects of the class that interrupt you as the listener. Entertaining, yeah, entertaining is also a pretty good one. Having lots of color. You know, unless you're completely like colorblind, you probably still appreciate seeing different things in different colors. Kind of like our instructor on the right for B, who has highlighted these different metals, these different elements, excuse me, different colors. Visual quality, yeah, incredibly brilliant. If you have a video that's in 480p versus a video that's in 4K, those are very cool things. Yeah, making the videos interesting. I like the happy face on that one as well. So these are just sort of the kinds of things I want you to keep about. I've come up with some of them for what I think would make aspects of an engaging video. And we touched on a lot of things like as well, having music, good audio, making them interesting, entertaining. I didn't have color in there. I probably should have. But in terms of also making mathematics and computer science related videos, probably showing some code, maybe not like giant programs, but if maybe I want to show a snippet of code, having equations that are easy to understand and are sort of intelligible, rather than these long, giant, huge systems of equations, maybe break them down into something that's more manageable. Having make great animations. Did anyone mention animation in the I don't think anyone did yet, but having things come in and out of screen, having graphs change, those kinds of things, students really do like having logicals, keeping them short. The general rule is that folks won't be able to pay attention to things that are too long. You'll start losing them after, the literature varies, but something like 15 minutes, I want to say, is the maximum you can usually keep folks' attention for. Somebody in the chat want to let me know what the actual number is. Yep, I think try and keep them fun and interesting. And accessibility is also something that we usually don't keep. That's usually comes up as an afterthought, but it should be designed in the forefront. So knowing that your content is going to be, I don't know, at least subtitled to provide some kind of accessibility requirement. And not only is it sort of the right thing to do, in many cases it's also the law. So if you're making a video for your class and it doesn't include subtitles or the ability to turn on subtitles, that can be considered discriminatory towards your students. So, so just also things to keep in mind. No longer than 10 minutes is the rule of thumb. Yeah, so 10 minutes, and that's generally what I shoot for when I'm making videos. I have some that are longer, but that's because they just have to go a little bit longer. But if you need to go longer than 10 minutes, you need to be able to justify that additional length. Like, would you still be able to hold on to people's attention for the extra time? Definitely, like, none of my videos go past 15 minutes, and that's not like a rule that you have to use. That's just something I set for myself. So sort of speaking about my videos, let me sort of show you my channel. I'm not going to play any videos right now, just because I don't want to tempt the streaming gods. But this was a screenshot of my channel from earlier this week. You can still see the Black History Month logo on the top left. And, oh, let me actually check what my count is now, because I can give you the most. My subscriber count is currently 4,684 subscribers. So that number on the top left is a little old. But sort of the idea, you can go and see I have a video that's 13 minutes, but the majority of them that are after that are 9 minutes, 9 minutes, 5 minutes, 9 minutes. Like, I try not to go more than 10 unless I really, really, really need to justify it. And again, I have one video that's actually been pretty popular recently, which is the video on the order of convergence topic that is 15 minutes, but it's also one of my sort of most popular videos recently. It's reached 10,000 views. Even kind of terrible, my other videos haven't gotten that same level of traction. So yeah, even though it is longer, it's still highly watched and highly liked. So that's sort of what my channel looks like. And let me actually leave that link in the chat in case anyone wants to. YouTube. Oops, help if I could type. Yeah, you can go there and check out my channel if you like. Help me reach the 47K, 4,700 milestone. I have no aspirations to reach 100,000. I don't think that's going to happen. But it is gratifying to see. Yeah, people do watch these videos. They do thumb up them. I get lots of feedback from comments for saying, "Hey, these are something you can improve," or "I really like this part." So I do like having that communication with people. And again, it's not something that I do full time, especially you can kind of tell I make about one video a month, which is not a lot, but that's what I can manage. To accompany these videos, by the way, I also include code because I mentioned my videos are math and computer science focused. And when possible, I like to give code that students can just run and see these what we're talking about in action. So this is, the next part is actually is it not going? Oh, there it goes. You can check out the repository for the code and you can access it directly from there. I think this website still works. So if you go to osrelease.com, I think it's the short version. But let me just actually type the github.com/release. Yeah, that should take you to the repo. And I see sorts of when people are cloning it and when they star things. And I do have a discussion board set up that folks haven't been using, but hoping in the future they'll start maybe requesting topics. They're letting me know what kinds of things they want to see. But one thing you'll notice if you do check out the code in the repository is most of these programs are actually in different languages. And I did this intentionally because one, didn't want to do anyone's homework for them. So if the class was, for example, in MATLAB, I have maybe 2 programs of all these lessons that are using MATLAB. And that's just because maybe MATLAB or Julia or something like it were the most convenient for me to write as short and concise as possible kind of program that would still make sense. Like I didn't choose a language that just wouldn't fit at all. So the way that my videos work, and I'll talk about this later, I often choose the language based on the topic rather than, oh, I know this language, I'm going to write my program in that language. So it's actually given me the chance to sort of stretch and play around with different languages. Like for example, I was doing 2 lessons that had parallel programming, or that could be parallelized very easily. And I chose to make those languages in Golang simply because it comes with all these concurrency features built into the language. And I wanted to sort of take advantage of that and show the speed of the algorithm and give folks working code that you can just you don't actually have to install anything, because I oftentimes will just give you a link to where you can run these programs online. So no installation necessary. You can click, run it, and see how these things work in action. Maybe make some changes and then run it again and see how the changes impact. So that's why I decided to do that sort of thing. But sort of going on into how I decide then to make videos, the first step is usually to decide on a topic. So when I was mentioning a lot of my videos are in mathematics and computer science, I have sort of carved out my niche in the area of numerical analysis. But that doesn't mean I won't change topics in the future. But sort of like once I decide on a topic, I'll do some background research on it, starting with the high levels I can, doing some quick Google searching in Wikipedias. The YouTube library, my library has been an amazing resource. But then once I get sort of the higher level view, I dive down deep into as many primary sources as I can, especially if I'm making a video on a topic that's named for somebody, like Taylor series. I did a huge dive into tons and tons of articles and original sources that I could for Brooke Taylor and his original intent for Taylor series. And that video, what I thought was going to be a very small sort of, oh, here's the Taylor series and here's how it works, ended up becoming, actually, I was working on the video probably like 2 months in terms of doing background research on it. And if you watch the video, you can, hopefully some of that work comes through and you can see the kinds of all the entire story of Taylor series, and I'm hoping that makes sense. But then once I do have the research done, I try to code these things myself. So notice this is even before I've actually started working on a lesson. I've done just a whole bunch of library deep dives and then program it myself, look up for languages that I think would help. So yeah, pick a language would be the first thing. And then whenever I encounter something that didn't work, like I tried it, I'm hitting either a programming bug or maybe my understanding of the length of the topic wasn't right, I document everything I did wrong or whatever I did to fix those kinds of things. And just every time I hit a stumbling block, that's something I mark down repeatedly, because I know if I don't mark this down, I'm going to forget later on. And I do this intentionally because I know that if I hit a roadblock, this is probably something that's confusing to students as well. So especially if I'm learning a topic to then teach it, I want those roadblocks to be as smooth as possible and sort of plan for those when I'm making the lesson. So, but I need to remember them and I need to know how I came across them and how I fixed them. And once I have that, I'll do all the debugging necessary that I can. In rare instances, have I programmed a lesson from start to finish where I had no bugs. And it's not until sometimes years later when I realize it that, you know what, this should have been a negative sign, or I forgot a -1. If you go to my channel, I have actually 2 videos that are all about video mistakes. Just sort of making errata and saying, hey, I have a video, it's a great lesson, I don't want to take that down, but it has this one error in it, and here's the error, and here's how I fixed it. And I only know about a lot of these things because the great thing about YouTube is it's online, everyone can see it. Everyone also knows when I make a mistake, or maybe not everyone, but it seems that way. And they'll leave a comment, hey, there's a bug here, there's a mistake there. And I want to acknowledge that and learn from it, and also, move forward with it. So I let folks know, hey, I made a mistake in a video, but I will try as much as I can to debug as much as I can before that, so I don't make these kinds of errors in the future. But they happen. I'm not going to say they're not entirely unavoidable, but as much as I can to debug them now, it saves me headaches in the future. And then only after I've done all of that do I actually even start to work on slides. And if you watch my videos, you'll notice that their slides are all PowerPoint presentations. And there's a reason that I do that, which I'll get into in a second. But this is tons and tons of work goes well before even trying to start on a lesson. And the process for this looks very much like I'm sure lots of your own lessons, whenever you're doing lesson plans, kind of come through. You have a draft and then maybe do some animations on the slides. Is my case. I tried to animate as much as I can, but I start with my outline draft and then move into animating, rather than saying, oh, I want to have this animation. Like, no, it's look at the flow, look at what the draft is doing. And then once I do that, I actually will present it. So I do a few test runs. My brother, I'm fortunate enough to have, is an amazing audience. He doesn't complain every time I want to run a presentation by him, even though I know I'm taking up a lot of his time doing it. And some of these things are still very much work in progress. So they may not make sense when I'm presenting it, but I won't know that until I actually do these sorts of test runs and get good feedback from that. So my brother, my colleagues at work, they all know I make these videos, and they've all seen them well ahead of time, even before they get published, because I'm running them by them and getting feedback from them. So when I go to record, it's not the first time I'm recording it or doing this presentation. It's probably like the fourth or fifth time. And this is also a good spot for me to catch any sorts of bugs or whenever things don't make sense. And I actually should have commented, do put anything in the chat. I'm keeping an eye on it as well. If there's something that comes up that you want to ask me about, just by all means, ask away, and I'll try to get to it as soon as possible. And then actually, once I'm done, I'll start the process from the beginning. And I don't mean restart on the slides. I mean start back to my topic. So go back to the absolute very beginning, do some Googling, go back to my primary sources, then check, did what I write match with what other folks are saying? Did my sources explain it one way, but I'm explaining it a different way? And I want to be conscious of that and sort of be aware of when this happens, and I'm making a strategic decision to do it that other way, either because it's much easier for folks to understand, or the way they had it didn't make much sense to current day viewers, because some of these topics go back to the 1600s when math was very different. So it's always a lot of going back and forth about what is, and at some point you have to stop and say, what is the right way to do this, and say, what is a way that I can get this done, so that I'm not working on these things forever. And then go back and also check the coding examples that I have match with the examples I'm giving the slides. This is also another place for me to catch bugs in my code, which when I'm looking at the examples that I give and running them with the code and seeing if they still work. So all good things, I imagine. And then the last part is to go through and record my actual videos. And so this is just my workflow. This is what has worked for me. It's kind of what I recommend for folks if they want to start making their videos. Notice that though, there is a stage that is missing from my workflow. And if you've ever made videos before, you might ask, well, what about editing? And I have a very clever reason as to why editing isn't really part of my workflow, and I'll share that to you in a second. But first, there are some tools you'll need whenever you are making videos. So one is a coder. So I use an editor like VS Code. You can use any, of course, IDE that you like. If you're familiar with Java, and then you're using BlueJ or IntelliJ or Genie or any of the other coders out there, or editors out there. I really like VS Code. One, because it's free, which everyone loves. But two, it works with most any language. So as long as somebody in the marketplace for VS Code has an extension for it, whatever language I choose, VS Code is going to work for it. And it's got great integration with GitHub. So one, I really, really like VS Code. Highly, highly recommended. Even if you're looking to make high school videos, I do think students can appreciate VS Code. But if it also comes with maybe too many features that some high schoolers don't like. For college, I definitely recommend VS Code as well. And then the other major program in terms of software that I use is PowerPoint. So I mentioned all my videos are essentially PowerPoint presentations. And I choose PowerPoint specifically, but I'll get into why PowerPoint is opposed to other kinds of things. And these are the only two software that you really need. The other important component is hardware, and that's because having good audio quality is essential. I learned that the hard way. A lot of my earliest videos were recorded using my laptop mic, and I go back and watch them again and I cringe because of how terrible the audio is. But I'm still proud of those lessons, but I just wish I had better microphones. So The microphone that I'm using, you don't have to use this one. You can use anything like this. If you're worried about cost, if you're trying to make your own videos, you can apply for flipped classroom grants. They're not that expensive. So the mic that I'm using, which is actually a birthday present for my brother. Simply, he knows I was making these videos and wanted to support me that way. It's from Audio Technica, and it is a USB mouse, USB mic, which is pretty convenient because a lot of times you'll go out and buy mics that are analog, and then you have to get converters to get them to work with your computer. So folks will swear by having only analog. I don't think the quality is that much different from having a USB microphone, but you will need to spend some money on this. So this mic runs around $200. But if you're also getting a mic, then it's usually common to then also get a pop filter, as well as a shock mount, or maybe even a stand. So those are all extra costs that will probably bring it up to somewhere around $350. And you don't necessarily have to go with Audio Technica. This was just the one that I use, the one that I really like. Any mic that probably runs around $200-ish from Yeti or any of those other companies out there will get the job done. But you just don't want to be using headphone mics. You don't want to be using laptop mics, Bluetooth mics. Like those will not give you the same sorts of quality, I should say. This is the easiest way to put it. You can tell when the mic is not good. And folks can stand bad video, like they can stand watching 480p. What they dislike incredibly is having bad audio. So do make the investment. Invest in some microphones. They're very much worth it. Rode is a good USB mic. Oh yeah, that's a good one. I definitely recommend. I'm partial to this Audio Technica. You can't see it. Hopefully it's not making. No, I can't move it. But I have it on the stand with the mount and a pop filter. So I did go that route. And why I'm using PowerPoint specifically. So there are a few features in PowerPoint. And again, I'll talk about alternatives, but there's a few that I really, really like. The first one being equation editing. So because I'm making math videos, having pretty typed equations that are formatted in a very mathematical and consistent way makes the learning of them actually that much easier because they look so much more professional. The consistency of it, being able to make matrices very easily, being able to include symbols quickly like pi and sigma. And again, high schoolers or middle schoolers probably not too keen on how an equation looks, but once you start getting to at least like college level math, having something like equation editor in PowerPoint is incredibly useful. And it's as simple as just going to insert and then equation, and you have something like this, and then you can edit and customize them however you like. The other really neat thing about PowerPoint is that it lets you record your slideshow. And it's a feature that I think that people sort of glance over and they don't realize what that means to record a slideshow. But the way it works is you'll say, click on my slide and start recording, and you'll be given a view that looks like this. Here, this was one of my, the slide contents will be in there and you're seeing a fractal, but having the items for record, stop, and play on the left side is the kind of greatest feature ever. There's also keyboard shortcuts, but you hit record and the slides will start playing like they normally will, and you can step through them. And as you're speaking, it's recording your audio as well. So it's recording the timings you're using to do your slides and then your audio at the same time. And then when you're done, you hit stop and you can go back and listen to what it recorded. So this is why I don't have an editing step, because all of my editing is done in vivo. I go through my presentation, having recorded, and anything that didn't make sense, I just go back and re-record. And it's the ability to just simply, with a few clicks, be able to fix a slide makes your life so much easier. You'll also notice probably on the bottom left side, it's giving you the timing for how long your presentation is. And then above that, you can see it says slide 39 out of 51. And essentially this is saying this is a 51 slide presentation. The thing is, in reality, it doesn't look like 51 slides. I consciously make the effort, and I learned this the hard way, to sort of break up slides. So slides that would take probably 5 minutes, I break them up into 1-2 minute chunks. That way, it's a lot easier to re-record things. I don't have to do a straight 5 minutes of audio and stepping through them without having to make mistakes. I can say, okay, let me just do 1 minute at a time. Let me do this slide is too difficult. Let me break it up and do it in 30-second chunks. Things like that. I highly recommend doing if once you start trying to do this, just to make your life so much easier. And viewers will never notice that there's that many slides. So it says it's 51. It actually probably looks like somewhere around 12. And this was on a video for fractals that I made. And so I stepped through different kinds of fractals. And when the animations occur, it just looks like you're zooming into the fractal rather than zooming into another slide. So it's a very clever way that you can sort of make very nice animations without needing to be this great animator, right? Because a lot of these slide transitions and animations you can do in PowerPoint, very easy to do with a few clicks. If you're trying to do this in Adobe Premiere or other kinds of things, that process is a little bit more challenging. I can say that. And then the other thing I wanted to comment on is about PowerPoint is one final thing. Once you're done recording your slides, you can go to File, Export, Create Video, and then select the video quality that you like, say Create Video, and give it the file name, and you're done. Well, you have to wait for it to encode. But with PowerPoint, you can make your slides, once you're done recording them, and have them saved in 4K. And because of the way PowerPoint works, if you have text, that text is going to look fine because it's going to just render it in 4K. If you had sort of text in an image and you try to do the same sort of thing, then it'll upsample the image. Maybe it won't look as great on a smaller screen or if your video is in 4K. But with YouTube, if you have the ability to upload your footage in 4K, I recommend it. My earliest videos that, again, I'm still proud of because they were what I could do at the time, are in 720p. And they look incredibly dated. My current videos, I don't have that same mistake. Everything I've been uploading now has been in 4K. And I'll just recommend that folks do that. And it does take longer. So encoding a video in 4K, even if it's something like 10 minutes, on my computer, it takes probably half an hour to do the encoding. And then the file that you get is, I think it's something like a gig for every 10 minutes, something like that. It's not a hard and fast rule. So it's going to be a large file. And then once you're done, it takes a while to upload it to YouTube or any other video service. So if you're not too keen about file size, you just want something quick, and then go ahead and do regular 1080p. It'll be much faster to encode it. The file's going to be much shorter. It's not something to worry about. But if you can, again, go into 4K. I highly recommend that. And then why specifically I'm using PowerPoint? Let me, because there are alternatives. And one of those is Google Slides. And folks, if you've been going to the sessions today, you've seen lots of different Google Slides templates. And they work really well. And there's two caveats as to why I don't use them. One being that it's difficult to do equations in Google Slides. There are tools out there that will let you do LaTeX. If you're familiar with maybe like writing sort of scientific publications, LaTeX is a very, I'm not going to say straightforward, but it's a very consistent way of writing mathematical equations and then formatting them much like the same way PowerPoint does, except it's not as just a click a few buttons and you're done. It's text-based and it renders it to look like mathematics. So that feature is something that I rely on, and it's not in Google Slides by default. But again, you can use external LaTeX editors to get very good mathematical equations into slides. The other kinds of things the other feature that I really like about PowerPoint, again, is the ability to export your video when you're done. Slides doesn't have that feature. Like they used to be, there is a way that you can tell it to export. There's like an extension that you can say, give every slide like 10 seconds, and then you can export a video that way. That's not the most convenient thing to do. And again, it doesn't include audio as far as I'm aware, and doesn't step through your slides like you would. So it's an option, but it's not one I recommend. So if you would want to go the Google Slides route, then use an external LaTeX editor and then do a screen capture. So present yourself giving your presentation in slides, capturing your screen and audio while you're doing it, and then save the video that way. There's an additional step then that you will probably want to go back and edit your video, just to maybe cut out pauses or maybe slides you did double takes on. There's a little bit of overhead that way. But if you don't have PowerPoint and you want to use slides, that is the way you can do it, and you can make it work that way. The other thing you can do is, if you are familiar with LibreOffice, LibreOffice does have a way for you to edit equations within Office. It's I think it's called Libre Equation or something like that, LibreMath, excuse me. So yeah, you can use LibreOffice Math. It's not necessarily LaTeX. It uses a different style, but it works very well. LibreOffice Math works also in their Word-like editor and then their Excel-like editor. So it's a very neat tool. And if, for example, you're not going to pay for PowerPoint, LibreOffice is a free option. It works well. You still need to do the sort of screen capture thing because there isn't a way for you to record your slides internally. So yeah, screen capture and then edit it and use LibreMath. And if you're on Mac, there is Keynote, which does let you export video. So Keynote will let you record your slides, step through them, and then finally export it to video. The one caveat is regarding equations. They do have a way for you to insert equations. It is LaTeX. I think last year you could also buy another, like an extension to Keynote that would let you import equations much easier than having to write LaTeX. But it's regardless. So if you're having to use Mac, and PowerPoint works on Mac too, but if you're using Keynote, everything that PowerPoint will let you do, Keynote will let you do if you don't mind using LaTeX. So no, this is very platform agnostic. You don't have to have a specific, Mac versus Windows or PowerPoint versus Keynote. No, there are alternatives. They all have their pros and cons. And in this case, it's really just up to you and what you feel comfortable with. So hopefully folks are good with that. No questions in the chat. 1 second, folks. Let me double check. Yeah. Okay, I've only got a few minutes left, and I don't have that many more slides to get through. So let me just quickly give you some of my final tips. One, try to be original. So I usually don't watch other videos on YouTube before I make my own. That's one of the things I try to make my own way, and then go back to see what other folks did, just to make sure that I can try to differentiate my explanations from theirs, because I don't want to just be uploading the same thing that everyone else is doing. And having good audio, we talked about audio, and avoiding a lot of text. So you notice that for a lot of this presentation, I didn't have much text. For my slides, I do have a lot more math equations in there, so there is more text and a little bit more text heavy, but I intentionally try to avoid putting lots of text, and that's just a good rule of thumb for presentations in general. But yeah, break up long slides. Again, my slides were like 51 slides. It really wasn't. You don't see the breaks between them. And give a test run. Always be captioning. So once you're done, one of the great things about YouTube is that it'll try to auto-caption your videos. So go through them and then fix the captions, because they will always get it wrong. But that's another feature that I encourage you to, I recommend highly. I can't recommend highly enough to caption your videos after you've made them. And the other great thing is that for folks who are non-English speakers, you can also translate your captions into whatever language they want. So because YouTube is worldwide, it's a great feature to have. And if you ever talk to your librarians, if you take advantage, because research librarians especially are the best when it comes to tracking down difficult sources. And I've been working with one of my librarians to try to track down a source for a new video I'm making from an old German publication that isn't available anywhere online, and they're working as hard as they can to try to get a copy of that. So yes, talk to librarians, make friends. They are literally the best. And then a little humor in your videos never hurts. So folks are saying, yeah, make them funny, make them entertaining. Try, when you can. You don't have to strictly be, laced all the time. You can let loose. You can put in a few jokes. And the great thing about these sorts of videos is you can sort of see my early videos and compared to now. You will get better the more you do this. So if your first videos aren't great, don't worry. Make a few more. You'll get the hang of this. It'll be a lot easier for you to record. And things will just start to make more sense, and you'll develop your own style for how how you make videos. And then sort of the last tip is keep your day job. Don't expect to go viral and make millions of dollars on YouTube. That isn't the common case. Do this because you want to have maybe a lesson that you teach all the time. You want to have a copy of it so that you can just say, hey, watch this video. I'm tired of repeating myself. Especially if it's something you're doing all the time. You can make a video of it, post it online. Do this as a hobby. Do this to help you with work. But don't do this because you don't want to work. Like I've gotten millions of views, or not millions. I've gotten over a million views. I've got something like 4,000 subscribers. But if I turned on monetization, I think I make something like $80 a year. It's really not worth it, folks, to go into it trying to make money. So do it because you like it. Do it because it's a fun hobby. And I think I'm doing it just because it also gives me something that makes me feel sort of like credible. Like, hey, I know what I'm doing when it comes to these topics. I can share my knowledge. But yeah, other than that, shout out to CSTA El Paso. Great chapter. I recommend, folks. We always love new members, so consider joining. And I mentioning CMU, I teach with CMU CS Academy. I think it's a great curriculum. It's free for school, so I highly recommend. I can plug that as well. And then CMU has a few YouTube channels if you want to follow CMU CS. The way computer science works at CMU, we've got the School of Computer Science, and then we have the department that I'm part of, which is the Information Systems Group. It's the School of Computer Science broken up into we got a machine learning division, got natural language processing, human and computer interactions. Like CMU does things differently. And yeah, lots of different YouTube channels. And I'll just mention, thanks for coming today. Hopefully you've found this information helpful. You have my email, veliz@cmu.edu. Go ahead and pop that in the chat. So yeah, reach out. Something that I said clicked, or maybe you want to learn more about what I've been doing, sort of my process. I'm happy to share. And thanks to the CSTA for letting me speak today. I'm really happy with the conference and the way the sessions are working. And I know they said, oh yeah, it's like herding cats. It's growing pains. I think the conferences will do well. So thanks, everybody.